My name doesn't matter. Dogs don't have names like yours. We have a sound our handler makes when he's proud of us, and a different sound when he needs us to be still. I know the difference. I've always known. I was born in a military facility south of Mexico City. Concrete floors, the smell of other dogs, the sound of boots on tile every morning at 5. From the time I could open my eyes, I was taught two things: to follow a scent, and to trust. The man at the end of my leash. His name was something I couldn't say. I called him by how he smelled: canvas, metal polish, something green and sharp like pine needles after rain. He smelled like safety. I would have followed him anywhere. For 2 years that meant warehouses, cargo containers, trucks that reeked of chemicals and fear. I was good at my job. I never missed. When I found something, I sat still and waited. That was the signal. That was all I had to do. Then one morning, everything was different. The camp had a smell I didn't recognize. Not chemicals. Not the usual compound where we slept and trained. This was mountain air, cold pine, wet earth, thin and sharp. We had traveled for hours in the back of a truck, my handler's hand resting on my side the whole way. Not petting, just present. That's what handlers do when they're nervous and don't want to show it. There were more men than usual. I counted by sound. Boots, breathing, the low murmur of voices kept deliberately quiet. They didn't want anyone in the hills to hear them. Neither did I. I was walked on a long line around the perimeter. My job was simple: tell them if anyone was out there before we moved. The night smelled like pine and cold stone and distance. And underneath it all, something else. I sat. My handler went still. Then everyone went still. There was a man, somewhere in the trees above us, moving slowly, carrying something metal. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew it didn't belong to the night. My handler whispered one word into his radio. The word I'd been trained to respond to all my life: contact. I had been on raids before. A warehouse in Guadalajara, a farmhouse in Michoacan. I knew the shape of them, the stack at the door, the rush of sound, the way the air changes from tense to chaotic in a single second. This one was different. The compound sat on a hillside ringed by pine trees, the sky still dark above us. So there were helicopters somewhere, too high and far for the men I was moving with, but I could feel the vibration in my teeth. I had learned to run under helicopters without flinching. It took weeks. I never completely stopped flinching. We moved fast. My handler had me on a short lead. Close work, close quarters. As we came through the gate, the first shots came from somewhere to the left. I felt the air change before I heard the sound. The men around me moved like they'd rehearsed it 10,000 times, because they had. My job in the chaos was to stay focused. Humans go somewhere strange when bullets fly. Their bodies flood with something that makes them big and loud and slow to think. I don't have that. I go the other direction. I go quiet and precise. Everything slows down and I can smell every person in 100 meters and tell you exactly which ones are running. Someone was running. A small team broke off from the main group. My handler unclipped my lead. Key, that meant go. The trail led up through the trees, pine needles, and disturbed earth, and the sharp chemical smell of a man who is afraid. Fear has a scent. I had been trained to follow many things, but fear was the one I never had to be taught. It was ancient in me, older than training. I moved through the dark. The trees were close together here. I could hear my handler behind me, his breathing quick and controlled. The other men further back. Above us, one of the helicopters banked overhead, and I felt the pressure wave through the branches. The scent was getting stronger. He was close. I slowed. I didn't bark. I had been trained not to. I had been trained not to bark. I sat, and I looked back at my handler, and my handler raised his hand. And the men behind him stopped moving, and for one moment in those dark Jalisco mountains, everything was still. I don't know what a cartel is. I don't know what El Mencho means. I don't know what $15 million looks like, or what fentanyl does to a city, or why the men in the compound fought so hard to keep us from this hillside. I only know what I smelled in the dark under those pines. A man, injured, breathing hard. 2 others with him, smelling of metal and sweat. I looked at my handler. He looked at me. He said the sound that means, good dog. They put him on a helicopter. I watched from the edge of the clearing. I don't understand helicopters. Not really. Only that they are loud and they take people away, and sometimes the people come back and sometimes they don't. My handler crouched beside me and scratched behind my ear. He said the sound again, the one that means I did something right, that the job is done, that we can both rest now. I leaned into his hand. Around us, the pine trees were starting to show their shape in the early gray light. Somewhere far below, I could smell smoke, distant and wide, like something large was burning in the valleys. I didn't know that in 20 states, men were setting cars on fire. I didn't know that a city was going quiet, holding its breath. I didn't know that what we had done would travel around the world by the time the sun came up. I only knew the mountain, and the pine needles, and my handler's hand, and that we were going home.